So, what are we doing here?
What are we doing? Well, you have a tradition of having some sort of challenge for yourself every year.
I do, yeah. And it seems to be movies recently. Last year was the Miyazaki challenge. Success. And we wanted to do we wanted to do a movie challenge this year. And it's our 15th year of being in a relationship, which is pretty amazing. I'm very excited about that. And we thought, why don't we be cheeseballs and think about, some of the movies that we watched in our first year of courtship. And we
that was our go-to date.
Yeah.
Was going to movies, and we have discovered that we have seen just in the movie theater in 2010, the first year of our relationship, 15 movies just as a date.
Yep. There were other movies that we saw, but just as the two of us on a date in a theater, we saw 15 movies. And we're like, how perfect is that?
How perfect is that? Also, how on earth did I have that kind of time? Because, again, we both saw more than 20 movies in that year in the movie theater. Mm-hmm. We had additional dates where we were just watching movies, like, in our homes.
In our
and I'm
dorm.
like, I haven't seen a movie in the movie theater since Scream 6.
Yeah, Scream 6. That was a big outing for us.
That was a big one for me. It was for my birthday.
Yeah.
Like
almost a year ago. Wow.
I used to be a film major.
Yeah. We used to go to the theater. We saw films.
I saw them all. Yeah. I would see them constantly. First of all, I'm like, how cheap were they that I was a college student going to movies literally multiple times a month?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
We valued it.
I digress.
Anywho. So Molly went through, because I remember some of the movies that we saw in 2010, but not all of them. But she was able to figure out the 15 that we saw, and we've already put them up on a list. I don't think we'll go through naming them here. But
no, that's okay.
For today, what we're going to be talking about is a movie called The Book of Eli, which came out, I believe it was January 2010. It was our first movie date.
No. Technically, our first date. It was our first movie date since we were officially in a relationship with each other. Our first date ever was in December of 2009. And that was to see a movie as well. But in 2010, after we had a discussion and decided, hey, what are we doing here? This is what we're doing. We saw a movie together, and that was The Book of Eli.
Yep. And the way we're going to be doing this, each time is we're going to think about, like, the time that we saw the movie the first, so in 2010, to kind of reminisce on anything that stood out from our first watch, and then kind of talk about our impressions on the rewatch. And I'll say for this one, I did actually remember a few things. One,
we'll set the scene.
Yeah, we'll set the scene. It's 2010. It's winter.
2010. It's winter. We just decided, hey, I like this person. Let's go see a movie.
Yeah, we Book of Eli's coming out. I'm excited, unbeknownst to Molly, but I am at that time a fairly big Denzel Washington fan. So.
I had no idea how big of a Denzel Washington fan Kyle was, and I just remember, I think vaguely, that we saw like trailers for this, and we were like, laughing about them, because the one thing I remembered a couple of things. Going into this movie, I just remembered the trailers where Gary Oldman said, "It's not a book, it's a weapon."
In such an unhinged way. And I mean, that's just perfect for Gary Oldman. Another exciting part too. I love him. I love the stuff that he does. So there was Denzel, had Gary Oldman.
Tom Waits is in it, which I think I had heard about. So I was like, yes. Also, to set the scene, Mila Kunis is in this movie. This was like a year for Mila Kunis, because she was in another movie we saw later this year, and it was getting a lot of buzz. I had no memory Mila Kunis was in this film.
Which I don't know what that says about her performance in this.
Or the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we go Huntington.
Yep, it's in downtown Huntington. I forget what type of theater that was.
I believe I met...
Perhaps a Regal or whatever. But
no, I don't know that was the time. I was going to say, I thought I might have met Courtney, your sister, that day, but I think that was a different time.
I think it was a different day. But yeah, we went and we saw it, and before we go a second further, we're going to be talking about the movie and talking about spoilers. And I think this movie in particular has a kind of critical twist.
Yes. One of them's not really a twist because it's revealed fairly early in the movie, and I think was immediately obvious what the twist was. But yes, 2 twists.
2 twists.
One of them was not as obvious, I recall, when we first watched it. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting watching it again, knowing this twist.
Yeah, that was honestly the most fun part about this rewatch was that we actually knew what the twist was, and we had not seen this movie since 2010. So this is the first time we're rewatching
most of these movies that we will be watching, we have not seen ever again.
But it was fun to watch because, all right, so I'm going to put the spoiler warning here. I don't know what the time point is, but if you care to watch this movie, it's fun to like watch it and not know, but it's also equally fun to watch it knowing what the twist is.
Absolutely, because then we're watching Denzel Washington's performance this entire movie.
Yeah. So, okay. Denzel Washington, Eli, is a blind man.
Yes.
And it's not immediately obvious because he's also like, you're in a post-apocalyptic world. Something happened 31 years ago. The atmosphere opened up. The ozone got destroyed. It like blinded a bunch of people. Wiped out civilization.
That's interesting that you say that because I do feel that you're right that it implies that a lot of people were blinded. I feel we didn't see a single person that was blinded by this in this entire movie. Is that correct? There are 2 blind characters in this movie, and both of them, I believe, were blind beforehand.
Yeah.
He was blind beforehand. Is that right?
No.
Oh, he wasn't.
He was blinded by the Flash.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That was the deal.
I think I missed that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
But really quick plot synopsis for people who don't know about this movie. So Denzel Washington is an older gentleman who is...
I mean, how old is he? They say that he's an older gentleman. They're all like, you remember the times before The Flash? It was like 31 years ago.
So I'm going to say he's like 50-something, but apparently that's very rare in this world. I think most of the older people got wiped out, so it's just like, people that, were not alive from the before times.
Wait, are you... Okay, sorry.
Let me just finish the synopsis. Denzel Washington is walking west. He carries a sword. He's in a post-apocalyptic hellscape. Everything is like weird Instagram filter, like very stylized. I think at the time that looked cool, but now I look at it and I'm like, that's just an Instagram filter. But anywho, it's got like that color scheme. It's very like dark.
It's gray.
It's gray. I think it's like grayscale. And he's walking west. He has a mission. He's holding a book. The book is the Bible.
That was the first twist.
That's the first twist.
Call it that.
Yeah.
It's not really a twist.
Yeah. A voice in his head led him to this Bible shortly after like the horrific events. They make some implications that, the Bible was a reason for the war that happened that led to this disaster, and then like all of them got burned, but this was the one that existed, and he's trying to get it to some location. He doesn't know exactly why yet because the voice inside him that's telling him to keep going. Along the way, there's people that try to rob him, hurt him. I don't know what he did in his before life, but he's like an expert fighter. He's like beheading folks. He's got some stylized action, pretty cool. He runs into this town that Gary Oldman is kind of controlling, and it's kind of an s-hole. But
he seems like somebody that would be like the bad guy in a season arc of like The Walking Dead or in like The Last of Us or something. Like you would stumble upon this guy's town in The Last of Us.
Right.
Or something like that. Yeah. He like rules it with an iron fist. Nobody in there is allowed to be a cannibal. It's like some sort of semblance of a society.
Yeah, there's cannibals in this world. The world is so like there's so little water and so little food that some humans have resorted to cannibalism, which then gives people the shakes. So like they're like constantly checking people if they have the shakes because they're not into that.
They're not into that.
Yeah,
and then
get that stuff out of there.
He wants the Bible. You find out he is making everyone that works for him like basically rob a bunch of people constantly and bring him every book that they have. Just to set the stage for like what kind of a person he is. He is introduced reading a book with the words Mussolini written in giant letters. So, like, that, they're not subtle.
They're not subtle, yeah.
And anyway, the book he's looking for is the Bible.
Yeah, because he wants to be able to use the language to better control the people. It's never, like...
Wait, no one in this society can, like, read, so I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Like, if I have the words,
yeah,
they'll do what I say. I'm like, okay.
Don't they already do what you say?
I mean, exactly. I don't really understand.
So the motivation's a little confused, but he wants it. He wants to have that control. Denzel's not going to let him have it. I feel like it's not in the right place. He keeps going. Gary Oldman. It becomes this, a little bit of cat and mouse, and trying to find Denzel, convince him to give up that book. Mila Kunis gets entwined into their adventure. They keep going.
A lot of stuff happens.
A lot of stuff happens. Yeah. Basically, it's just the journey of him, trying to, carry the Bible to the West to I guess protect it and save it, and maybe to eventually, reproduce it and be able to share it with people in the world, because it's been lost. I think that's basically the gist.
Yeah, and
it's action, it's gory, it's rated R, which I was a little bit surprised
about. Rated R
about.
for, according to Amazon, flashing lights and violence, which I don't even know what lights they're talking about. I don't recall flashing lights.
Yeah.
Wasn't even that.
Yeah. It's like a C+ B- movie to me. It's not a bad watch. I enjoyed it the second time around, knowing that he was blind, and like knowing that Denzel's direction he was given was to be a blind man.
Be blind, but don't be too blind. So people don't know.
So you can see like there's these little hints right in the beginning where like he's going through a house and he's opening up cabinets, and he's just like he's got his hand in the cabinet and he's like pushing a bunch of stuff around, and it's like,
why did we think he was? Yeah, like when you know he's blind, you're like what did we think he was doing?
What do you think he's doing?
Like, I guess searching for something.
Yeah.
And then there's another scene where like he opens a closet and like he jumps. There's like someone had hung themselves in the closet. But like when he jumps, he's very clearly didn't jump because he saw the dead body. He jumped because he was looking in a completely opposite direction.
Yeah.
I guess he jumped because of the smell.
The smell, probably, and he wasn't actually looking at the body. He was like looking a little bit like off
that
body.
Was what was interesting. So, like, but you wouldn't have noticed that if you didn't know.
So it was fun to see that, to be like, oh, okay.
One question I had was at the very beginning, he wanders past a car and goes in. First of all, I don't know how he knew there was a car there because again he's blind. There's like just like a skeleton in this car, like a straight up skeleton, and he like opens the car and starts looking, like touching the wires, like I guess to see if the car
trying to see
works.
if you could hotwire it.
Yes, which wouldn't make any sense because he's blind. So I don't know how he would be able to drive the car anywhere. I don't know if the voice that is guiding him somewhere, he thought would just like tell him how to drive. I don't know.
I mean, it's a little bit absurd because, like, yes, he's blind, but he also has, like, superhero powers. So, like, very quickly, he's ambushed by, like, a group of, like, 6 or 7 dudes and, like, immediately, like, takes one guy's hand off. Like, it's a quick, like, 10-second fight scene, and they all just die. And I'm like, all right, so is he Daredevil kind of vibe?
On this note, the CG in this movie is horrible.
Yeah, it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, but still, it's like... There's a scene where he, like, somehow gets a shotgun out of Tom Waits' hands, like, very fast, and that looked ridiculous.
That looked so funny.
It was, like, it was normal. Like, I don't even know if that was CG.
I don't think it was...
They sped it up.
They sped up the film to make it look like Denzel.
But, like, some of the fight scenes, for some reason, like, the blood in the fight scenes is CGI, as is the smoke. There's some guy that has a chainsaw that's fighting him. And the smoke is clearly fake.
Fake ass smoke, man.
And I just don't understand it. Like, the violence was either like really violent, like somebody getting shot through the dick with an arrow violent, like up close
through the neck. You see the arrow pop through the neck. You see heads rolling,
or like the camera is rotating. They're far away. And there's like a table in front of them, and you see nothing. Yeah. So it was very odd. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think what's a couple of scenes, I guess. Well, one other thing to call out is The other thing I found absolutely baffling about this that I definitely did not notice the first time we watched this movie was the product placement in this movie is insane.
It was all over the place. Look, I got a list here. Tell me if I missed anything. There was product placement for KFC, Beats by Dre, Busch Beer, J. Crew, Puma, the Apple. There was like an original iPod that he was playing.
Motorola. Gary Oldman at one point, which is the scene we'll talk a little bit about, holds up a megaphone with Motorola emblazoned. It was so strange.
Yeah.
The J. Crew thing, I really don't. It's like a dilapidated building,
but like
with this pristine J. Crew
logo.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah. So that was silly.
I'm like,
I remembered a good bit of this film, but there was like kind of like the climax of the film that I did not remember.
Which is the only thing I remembered, other than the fact that Gary Oldman said it's not a book, it's a weapon.
Yeah. So like Eli and Mila Kunis, they're traveling together. They find this house, and they just want to see like I guess who's in there, if there's supplies. Quickly they ring the doorbell and they fall into a trap door. This was funny because there was a sign that said no trespassing, and they came out and was like, didn't you see the sign? And Denzel was like, no, I must have missed it. And it's like, he's blind.
Yeah, there's a couple of other ones like that. He also says at one point, I wrote down the quote, you walk by faith, not by sight. This is again before you know he's blind.
It's so funny.
Anyway.
Anywho, but who comes out the door but
Michael Gambon.
And
I forget her name, but Madame Maxime.
Who's
I think Frances something Latour. Madame Maxime, the giant lady in Harry Potter that like is from the Beauxbatons.
Yeah, so you got the giant lady and you've got Dumbledore, and they come out and they look crazy and they got guns. And it's
They're also supposed to be playing Southerners. But they are obviously British.
And the accents are...
Did not have very good accents.
Very good.
I don't know what the hell her accent was supposed to be. It was slipping. It was crazy.
Yeah. But, they're like, oh, there's a girl there. Hey, come on in. Let's have some tea. Let's hang out. So then she's, pouring some tea, and you immediately notice that her hands are vibrating.
Violently shaking. Like, violently. She's, like, carrying the tray out of the kitchen. It's just like... Here's your tea.
And they're playing it cool, like, oh, thank you. You can even...
I can't even believe they drank this tea.
You can even be convinced that they didn't, like, notice, but I'm like, of course Denzel noticed, Eli noticed, but they're, like, drinking the tea, they're talking, at one point they take him to the backyard and show him a bunch of graves.
Like, hey, they tried to take this house from us, but we showed them.
They go back inside, and... I forget who says it first, but I think maybe it was Eli that was like,
he's like we need
to get out of here right now.
And she's like, their hands are shaking.
He's like, yes, I know. Like, they killed all those people. Yes, I know. We need to go. So then immediately they're like, yeah, thanks so much. We got to get going. And Eli pulls out a gun on them.
Oh, wait, she comes out of the kitchen with like a pile of people.
Meat.
Like, you want some sandwiches? They're like, yeah, we gotta go, thank you.
Yeah, we gotta go. So then they're, going out the door, guns pointing at them, like, yeah, we got a piece. But then when they leave the house, in the middle of this, Gary Oldman and his crew of lackeys have been trying to find him and get the Bible.
Can I just interject?
Yeah, please.
Gary Oldman's entire arc in this film is very early on. He gets like shot in the leg. So he's like
there's a standoff earlier on.
Infected leg.
Yeah.
And he's just in this car getting progressively sweatier and more deranged.
Yeah.
That's his entire point. By the way, go ahead.
But honestly, I thought this was maybe intentionally funny or not, but they go outside. There's like 3 to 4 trucks that are coming, and they're just like, oh, shit. So they go back inside the cannibal's house. It was like, yo, we got some company coming. You got weapons? And Dumbledore's like, do we got weapons? And like opens up an ottoman, and it just like converts into like this
couch they were sitting
on. It was the couch.
Their entire couch.
A ton of machine guns. They start arming up, and I'm like, how did I forget this whole sequence?
I don't know. It's great. This is the best part of the movie.
The best part of the movie.
And then they shoot the hell out of this house. Somebody has a bazooka.
There's a bazooka. One of the trucks has a Gatling gun. gunned. Yeah, the both Dumbledore and the Madame Giantess, get gunned down. I think she gets gunned down first, and he goes
with the bazooka.
Yeah, and then he goes guns blazing, and then they have
And then they're taken. They end up shooting Eli in the stomach and taking the book.
And it's very dramatic.
I feel like
they zoom in on a bunch of faces.
It's one of those ones where like they replay it like a few times in like slow motion.
The sound is kind of in slow motion.
Yeah, and like the sound cuts out.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it cuts back in, and it's just Mila Kunis going like. Anyway, so they leave him for dead.
Yeah.
They take his book. Mila Kunis, who has basically been shown to be an idiot. She doesn't know how to read. She was born after this flash happened, so she like doesn't really know anything. She's like naive. She almost gets like raped and like killed by somebody who saves her.
Yeah, he saves her.
Anyway, but she like is like because he read to her from the Bible one time. It's changed her life, and she's like, I gotta go back and get more of that book.
It's not a book.
Exactly.
It's a weapon.
And then she like hijacks the car that they're in and like kills everybody in the car.
Yeah,
and
she
in
does
the
like
other car.
She does like a Hitman style, it was like a piece of rope around the neck, and then the car just does like 16 flips.
She escapes.
She walks out with a couple of cute scratches on her face.
Very demure scratches. Yeah. Another guy's been impaled in his fucking chest with a sword. She's got like a tiny little scratch on her eyebrow.
Little blood.
Anyway, she gets away. Gary Oldman's like, by the way, she is Gary Oldman's lover's daughter.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that, but was not that important.
Whatever, I don't really care. I got my book. So what we didn't say is the real twist, other than him being blind. The reason that's a twist is because when Gary Oldman gets the book back to where he lives, they pry it open, and it is in Braille.
And this is how, like how much the twist affected me the first time, because the Bible opens up in theaters 2010, and I see Braille, and my thought is like, that's funny. Why can he read Braille?
Well, this is my question. If he wasn't blinded until after The Flash, why can he read Braille?
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he was blinded in this Flash. Did he say that?
I mean, he kept referring to the Flash and that he was alive for that.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he was blinded during the Flash.
I mean, it was strongly implied that it was the Flash that blinded him.
Then how did he learn to read Braille?
There's
like a whole people that don't know how to read anything. How the hell did he learn how to read Braille?
I mean, he probably learned,
From who?
I guess who taught?
Who in this underground bunker in this like wasteland taught him how to read Braille?
Details doesn't matter. He knows how to read Braille.
The other
blind,
thing
he can read Braille.
So the other thing about him being blind is the most noticeable part of him being blind is like there are many scenes in this movie where like at night he reads the Bible every night.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of ones where he's just like crouched over this book, feeling the pages.
Yeah, and his face is like 2 inches from it.
The book. And he's like, oh, that's interesting.
That's the normal way to read a book.
It's a normal way to read a book.
Yeah.
They don't linger on that. I think about that, and I'm like, he's probably like, how do I make it look like I could be blind in reading this book, but also not so obvious that I'm blind in reading this book? Yeah. That's what he came up with.
So Gary Oldman starts losing his mind. He's like, he can't be. And at this point, they have made it to the West Coast. They made it to California. I don't think we said, but after like all the stuff goes down, Mila Kunis like grabs the car and then drives to find Eli. He's since gotten up and has just continued walking
with like a giant gaping wound in his stomach.
Yeah, picks him up, gets like duct taped up. They drive. They make it to the sea. They hit the Golden Gate Bridge. They like get onto a boat and start.
He is rowing.
This was insane. He's rowing a boat to Alcatraz. 'Cause, like apparently that's where the voice is telling him to go. And there's like some security up there that state their business. He claims that he has a copy of the King James Bible, and Mila's looking at him like, but you lost the Bible. What are you talking about? But since Eli has been walking across the U.S. for 31 years. 30.
He said after a year in wherever he was.
Right. So it's been 30 years of him walking across, the desert plains. He has I guess, committed to memory most, if not all, of the Bible. So he gets there to this place, which they're trying to like recapture human knowledge and ingenuity and whatnots, and they don't have a copy of the Bible, so he starts narrating the Bible to the scholar, and I don't know how long that takes, probably a while, but
that's what they shave him. He's all shaved, and he's in what looks to be a baptismal gown while he's dictating this Bible. He dictates the Bible
while Mila Kunis is like sleeping on the floor listening.
So the deal with the people at Alcatraz is their whole thing is that they are going to. It's about preserving arts and literature and like whatever. So
and they're building a printing press.
They've built a printing press. Yeah. The main guy is Malcolm McDowell, who I read was uncredited for this movie, despite the fact that he has numerous lines. So I'm like, did he just see a cut of it and was like, I don't want my name on this? He looks insane. He looks like he's supposed to look like Albert Einstein. It's a horrible wig he's wearing.
Yeah.
And he literally writes on pieces of paper everything that Denzel Washington, Eli, says is in the Bible. I think it's funny because, like, how do you know that he's got that right?
I mean, that's maybe that's a question.
They do end up calling, so they end up printing a copy of it. They do end up calling it the New King James.
The New King James, yeah.
So if he's a little off, it's okay.
It's okay, you know. He tried.
But he, like, inexplicably, again, I thought it also was implied that he succumbed to his wound, but this must have taken
weeks. At least.
And he dies, like, immediately after reciting the entire Bible.
Yeah. And then Mila Kunis takes his machete sword and his like sunglasses and suits up, and it's like, I have to go home.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell's like, you could just stay here.
You'd be safe.
You'd be safe from everything in here. And she's like, no, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Do what? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, wait, where are you going? Home.
Yeah. And this is the dumbest part of the movie because, like, yes, she survived the trek, out west, but she's
learned no skills.
She's learned no skills. So I'm like, she's walking off into the desert. She flipped
That's
the car
all
around.
She did.
Yeah. Like, she died 2 days later. Like, you're not telling me that she survived getting back to her town.
Back there. Like, she's too dumb.
Yeah.
Also, as Kyle pointed out, like, Mila Kunis, for a girl that grew up in a post-apocalyptic society where, like, the sun is literally, like, burning everyone, and, like, there's no water and food, really, has very conditioned hair.
Yeah.
And very, very nice skin.
Well moisturized, great hair. I'm like, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gary Oldman ends up losing absolutely everything because he's got this book. What we didn't mention is that his lover, Mila Kunis' mom, is also blind.
But has always been blind.
Yeah. So when he sees that it's Braille, like, he makes her come up here. He's been mistreating her this entire time.
Yeah.
And she's really pissed about her losing her daughter. She thinks she's dead. And he's like, read it. She's like, I don't remember how.
Yeah.
Your whole life is ruined.
Yeah.
And the bar is being torn apart as we speak.
And you stink like shit.
I can smell your festering wound when I walked in here.
She suddenly gets very bold and starts, like,
gives a real
him.
read.
Yeah.
And then walks out, God knows where, because I'm like, I get that he's an asshole, but I'm pretty sure the dissolution of the peaceful-esque society he's created, I'm pretty sure some guy's trying to rape a woman, like, on the bar, like, behind him, while he, like, slowly crumples onto the floor and is like, my life is ruined. Like, they're just tearing up this bar. I'm like, where is this completely blind woman who doesn't have a stick or anything to guide her anywhere? Just walks off into a pit of violence.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Great time.
It was a great time.
Yeah. It was. It's a story about the importance of bringing the Bible back. So it's a little,
heavy-handed.
It's a little heavy-handed and preachy, about that. But for, like, a action flick that, in a post-apocalyptic society, Denzel's acting good. Gary Oldman's a good actor. It's a fun watch. I wouldn't, like, strongly recommend it, but if you had 2 hours and were curious,
I'd give it a C+, but like a fun C+.
A fun C+.
And I'd also say the other thing that's really funny in retrospect, if you know that he's blind, is like a big part of this is like women keep like trying to like come on to him, like they try to use Gary Oldman wants to use Mila Kunis as basically like a prostitute to get him to like do what he wants to give him the book.
That's the first encounter that they have.
And she's like wearing like some lingerie. He can't
even see.
So he has no idea that she's like in this lingerie. There's like another woman that was like trying to like lure him over there so that he could get jumped, and she's like pushing out her chest and going like, I need help. He has no idea what this box looks like.
Just standing there.
It's just very funny knowing that.
Yeah.
Because he's like ignoring all of this. He's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So even if you haven't seen it, we spoiled all this. It's still fun to watch.
And Gary Oldman is great he is in everything. I don't know why there were so many actors and actresses from Harry Potter in this series. Yeah,
but there were cannibals.
Well,
I forgot Gary Oldman's Sirius. Yeah.
And Tom Waits is fun. He's in it for a couple of minutes. He doesn't really do much.
But he's
just very Tom Waits.
Yeah. He owns a shop.
He's like an engineer. He like is charging Eli's iPod, and that's it.
Yeah.
And he breaks open the Bible at the end for Gary Oldman. Yeah. Gary Oldman's like, gentle with it. Gentle with it. Gentle.
Yeah. That was fun. Stay tuned for our
next one,
which will be It's Complicated.
It's Complicated, starring Meryl Streep,
Alec Baldwin,
and Steve Martin.
All right, signing off.